What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. This is Breakfast with CanesInSight. Appreciate everybody joining us here on this Sunday morning. A lot of action last night. We did a ton of shows yesterday, but want to just kind of recap, talk about what happened with recruiting, good news, bad news, and some interesting football news that's going to affect that opening game potentially against Notre Dame. So we'll get into all that, get into your comments as well. First, I want to talk about some folks that you know are going to be there on opening day, and that is Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anidjar and Levine. Yeah, man, feeling pretty good. Just did a Pilates class with my wife. Never really done that before. More, weights and traditional cardio. But I got to say, I recommend it, man. Definitely a good stretch and good for your core, especially when you're old and your hamstrings and your back are tight. So shout out to Pilates, man. That got me going here in the morning. Fired up to talk Canes. Morning, everybody. Everybody checking in on this happy Sunday. 95 and sunny in Grit City. Let's go. So obviously, the news yesterday, the big news. Well, there's a few bits of news, some good, some bad. Let's start with the bad, just because why not? Albert McKenna saying the Calvin Russell commitment was extra as hell at a nightclub. Yeah, it was interesting, man. So we'll talk about that. So Calvin Russell commits to Syracuse. That was actually my prediction. I know Wilt Fong was thinking Michigan. My information on that, just from a local standpoint, was probably Syracuse. We shed on the show yesterday. It turned out to be that he did pick Syracuse. The number reported was crazy. Just pull up here. First of all, here's a commitment tweet from Hayes Fawcett. There you go. The Syracuse orange there in the logo. I'd make fun of these guys more, but they beat us last year. But obviously, this is not a program you go to in the 2020s to have a lot of success. Highest ranked recruit to commit to Syracuse in the past 20 years. Obviously, Fran Brown, kind of the star of the show there, that's getting all the attention. But really, I think the big story to me is the contract, right? It's funny, nowadays it's like free. I mean, it's been like free agency for a while, but now they're not even trying to hide it, man. They're going out there and saying what the deal is. It's like Adam Schefter reporting, free agent signings. So here we go. Calvin Russell contract terms, as reported by Brian Awada. He says 5-star recruit Calvin Russell heading to Syracuse on a 3-year, $4.3 million deal, according to his agent, Justin Giangrande. So, I mean, I cannot confirm that exact amount because I'm not, the agent, but that sounds based on what I had heard, the kind of numbers being thrown around for Calvin Russell. And look, I mean, if the guy ends up being a first-round pick and really puts Syracuse on the map and keeps their momentum going, obviously they beat us last year, had their big moment there. So if he keeps that going, it's probably a pretty good deal. If he doesn't gain weight, if he struggles to transition, that is a huge number for a high school receiver. But if it works, it works. Now it's interesting. Based Joren saying they paid him more than Pena wanted. And Cafe 903 saying they're saying he's got $3 million. I mean, again, these numbers this was apparently from the agent, so I'm just going off that. So to me, look, they had a 1,000-yard receiver in Trevor Pena, and Fran Brown made a huge show. Like, I'm not paying that for you. I'll pay that for Jeremiah Smith. I'll pay that for Travis Hunter. I'm not paying you that kind of money, which is funny because Trevor Pena was a 1,000-yard type receiver in the ACC, and now instead they're paying that kind of money to a high school kid. Now, if this high school player ends up being like a Jeremiah Smith or a Travis Hunter, I think they probably think it's money well spent. But very interesting to me that Fran Brown took such a principled stance against paying players, and then of course pays a ton of money for a high school recruit. Daniel Cardell saying, I presume Syracuse paid him more money than we thought he was worth. I mean, look, they paid him a lot of money, man. So it's a ton. David asking, is he going to play basketball there? I believe he is. So a lot of questions here. And we talked about this yesterday, which is, Deshaun's what's all these South Florida wide receivers leaving Miami. Jay asking, why are South Florida players, coaches, and handlers so disloyal to Miami? Don't see this stuff anywhere else. There's a lot of things going on. I would say, first of all, 2 banners just went up in the IPF for first team All-Americans. Cam Kitchens a couple years ago, Xavier Restrepo this year. Both those guys are South Florida products. A lot of South Florida guys on this year's team. Talked about it yesterday, but between the running backs, Lyle and Fletcher, JoJo Trader and Malachi Tony, a wide receiver, maybe Josh Moore, defensive line, Ruben Bain, Ahmad Moten. Basaint's going to start at linebacker. OJ Frederick and Xavier Lucas, probably, in my opinion, going to be the best duo of corners in the country. Damari Brown's a pretty well-compensated corner back there as well. So there's a lot of guys from South Florida on this team. We'll see how they perform. We'll see how they get it done. But I think there's a lot of problems. I think, number one, being fair to these guys, and I said it yesterday, Miami's been bad for 20 years, and they lived it in a way that maybe other kids from other places didn't, right? If you're a Jackson Cantwell, you're not watching Miami growing up. You're not even paying attention to them, really. So when Mirabal comes and shows you the resume for offensive line, you say, okay, it makes sense. These other guys, they grew up seeing Miami lose, seeing their dads, their moms, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers complain about Miami all the time. They hear that. They come up with that. So I think a lot of this is they're going to feel 20 years of poor play more than an out-of-state player, right? They're going to be more knowledgeable of that. They're going to see players that they looked up to perhaps go to Miami and not have the career that they expected. So whereas Jeremiah Smith, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy had those careers elsewhere. So I think that's something that you have to consider, just being fair to the players. Another factor here is, these guys all know each other. So when it comes to the money, obviously this is an agent putting it out there, which is not always the case. That's even worse. But no matter what you pay these guys, they're going to know what everybody else makes. So if you pay a guy like Calvin Russell, who could be a really good player, hasn't caught a pass yet, X, and you have players on your team that are friends with him or that played with him or played against him that are doing better in college and making less, you get a problem there. So I think there's a lot to this game that comes in, that factors in with the local kids, that you probably don't need to worry about as much with out-of-staters. Plus, I'll say, South Florida, and I'm the biggest South Florida advocate, it has been down lately. I'd say since the class really of 2020, where we got Restrepo, who ended up being probably the best player, one of the best players in that class, at least top 3. There really hasn't been a lot of talent coming out of South Florida relative to what it was the 5 years prior. If we go from 2015 to 2020, compared to 2020 to 2025, major drop-off. Jeremiah Smith, there's a couple, obviously, huge exceptions. But I think in general, look at the NFL draft, look at the NFL, South Florida has gone down a little bit, and I'm the biggest South Florida fan. These things goes in waves, but right now is what it is. So we've actually been lucky to get a guy like Cristobal who can recruit out of state, plus having Canes Connection, the number one collective in the country, that is able to, fund these out of state battles. But it's coincided with South Florida itself being down. And even then, again, you saw the names I just listed. Those are major contributors. Fletcher and Lyle, that's your running game. JoJo Trader, hopefully going to be your top receiver. Malachi Tony, hopefully going to be your top freshman. If not, Josh Moore, another South Florida guy. We mentioned Ruben Bain, your top 10 projected player. Ahmad Moten's going to be a major factor. Basaint's a starter. Frederick and Lucas are your 2 best secondary guys, your 2 best corners, maybe the best corner duo in the country, and then Damari Brown moving around. So there are a lot of South Florida guys on the team. A lot of South Florida guys we missed out on were busts. Like we talked about, Hakeem Williams was I think you'd have to say he's a bust. Jaylen Brown, you say he's a bust. Ennis, I wouldn't say he's a bust, but he's not elite, like he was going to get paid. So South Florida's just been a little down, man. And Miami needs the battle that obviously is killing Miami is a Jeremiah Smith. And then eval-wise, even if you take a Jordan Lyle, I think you take a Jordan Lyle every time, you're not loving the fact that you didn't take like an Isaac Brown, right, from Homestead. So there's been certainly there's been plenty of misses, but, I think there's a lot going on with South Florida recruits. Cafe saying, I feel for Calvin, Syracuse is freezing, cold, and boring. Let's see if he goes there. I don't even know if he's going to go there. The truth is, who knows if Syracuse does bad, is he going to go there? And if Syracuse does good, again, is Tran Brown going to stay in Syracuse? I would say those are the questions I'd be asking. I would put it this way. We're here in July 6th, 2025. And maybe this gets clipped up and gets thrown in my face by Syracuse fans, but I'd be shocked if Calvin Russell is getting drafted with a Syracuse next to his name. I just don't see that playing out that way. but it could happen. And obviously, Miami wanted to get this guy, so there's not like spinning it. Miami wanted to get Calvin Russell. They would have been very happy to accept his commitment. Obviously, there's financial stuff involved, and I'll let people speculate on that. But Miami wanted this player to be a Hurricane, so the fact that he's not is not good. But like losing the Battle of Syracuse, I personally do not see Syracuse keeping this guy, just for whether, again, if they have a bad year, I could see him leaving. If they have a good year, I could see Fran Brown leaving and then he leaves. If they get him and Fran Brown stays, are they going to develop him the way he needs to be developed for 3 years where he stays? I just don't see it, but I could be wrong. Martin Dubé should do an episode on the politics of South Florida high schools, player ups, etc. Maybe get Streeter to do an episode with you. Yeah, that's a good idea, man. Street's real plugged in with all that. Just, man, there's a lot going on. Some of it, I think, is unfair to the kids to put it on because we've been bad. Like, Miami has not held up their end of the bargain. So these kids are acting rationally in a lot of ways. The other part is just, again, the dynamics is like you get transfers in Pop Warner here. So you have Pop Warner transfers. Like, kids get recruited off of Pop Warner teams. I'm sure people in the comments can validate what I'm saying. You will have kids 8 years old, 7 years old that will get transferred to another park because someone's going to pay their utility bills, or more. So that happens a ton. I've heard a million stories like that. So you're talking about the culture of free agency basically at a young age. Now, is it wrong or right? I don't know. I mean, it's someone wants to pay you to play football. I know Luther Campbell compared it to kind of like the Chinese gymnast. Those Chinese gymnasts that like they start when they're like 7 and they're getting trained for the Olympics at a pretty serious rate when they're young. And then by the time they're like 12, they're beast. I mean, it's kind of like that, I guess. But yeah, it's a different culture, certainly at a younger age with the movement and the kind of the professionalization of the sport. Got people talking about Miami paying too much for Cantwell. They're saying that, paying Miami, calling out other teams for paying too much is absurd. I'm not even saying they're paying too much, really. It's to me, it's more like you called out, you had a player on your team that was productive and you said he was getting paid too much. Then you pay a high school kid who's a projection. I don't say he's a project, but you're projecting with him. He's not a ready-made guy. You're paying a high school kid that same kind of money after you made a whole show about not paying a player that's on your team and has produced, helped you win, helped you beat Miami, helped you have that great season where you went 9-3. That to me is the hypocrisy. I don't think Syracuse paying for high school recruits is bad. I mean, Syracuse, I mean, who wants to be in Syracuse? So overpaying is probably what they got to do. I don't think this is a terrible idea if you have the money. But I think it's funny coming from the coach who said he wasn't going to do it. And as for the Cantwell thing, I would say when it comes to paying big money, I like paying money for guys that weigh more than 270 pounds as a rule. Now, Jeremiah Smith's a receiver. You pay Jeremiah Smith and feel good about it, both in retrospect and at the time. But for me, my personal opinion, if I'm paying big money for a high school kid, like big money, I would like that player to be over 270 pounds, whether he plays offense or defense. And of course, they need to have all the tools to go with that to earn the money. But I think those guys are just a little rarer. Calvin Russell is going to be a good player. You've not known, you can't say I've come on here and bash Calvin Russell, the prospect. I think he's a legit high 4-star prospect. I think he's good. He has a chance to be really, really good NFL type player. There's just a little more projection with him than a Jeremiah Smith or even a Tristan Keys, than maybe some other guys. But we'll see here. We got a lot of people fired up. Adam Springman saying a lot of people want to go to Syracuse, big party school. I mean, I don't know. I don't see. I'm sure I can get a house right there in Syracuse, New York, in the surrounding areas for pretty cheap. A lot cheaper than Coral Gables, I promise. I don't think people are rushing to move up there, but I could be wrong. I don't think so. I don't, but we'll see. A lot of people hating on Russell in the comments. Lou Screw saying missing on is not a curse, it's a blessing. Rod Vick saying he's overrated. Look, I think we wanted to get this guy. I think I'm happy with Vance Spafford and Tyron Evans in a vacuum. I think you need one more Miami needs an outside receiver that's going to shake Roger Goodell's hands. Maybe that's Tyron Evans. Maybe that's Vance Spafford. He runs a 4.3. But I do think we need to get guys that are not just good college players, but guys that can go pro and be impactful guys at a high draft pick, because that's going to allow you to recruit the Jeremiah Smiths, who, of course, you saw on the national championship team. So I think that's something that that we need to get done there. But yeah, I thought that was just interesting, the way the whole Russell thing played out with all that talk about, Fran Brown. I'll pay that money for Travis Hunter and Jeremiah Smith. I'm not sure that Calvin Russell is that, but we'll see. Corey Smith saying, no worries over here. We play up to our potential this year. We'll flip some top players. I agree. I think that's the idea that Miami's thought process is, we think we can flip players. Now, you can't go into the season with, like a Florida Gator type recruiting class, like what they have now. What do they rank? Like 18th or 19th, something like that, and expect to flip a million guys and go top 5. That's probably a little more unrealistic in this era. But if you are in the top 10, which we are, I think we're number 7 right now after the Brody Jennings flip. I'll check the latest rankings now. And then you flip a couple guys like you did with Armando Blunt, like you did with Justin Scott, like you did with Hayden Lowe last year, all 5-star players. If you flip a couple of those guys to a class that's already highly ranked, now we're talking. So that's what I would say. Philip Rusomano saying, feeling for my fellow Ocean Township alumni, Trevor Pena, but happy we're not dealing with him next year. Yeah, man, I'm glad he's out of Syracuse. Syracuse doesn't look very good next year. Now, I will say they did a great job getting Steve Angeli. I thought they needed a new quarterback. The guy they had from LSU looked terrible in spring, but they're pretty limited in what they've brought back. They lost a ton. They lost their best offensive lineman to, I want to say, USC. They lost him to the portal. They lost their best defensive lineman to Texas. They lost a lot, man. They lost all their top receivers to the draft and Pena going to the portal. They lost their running back, LaQuint Allen, to the draft. They lost their best pass rusher to the draft. They lost a ton, man. They're not going to be very good next year, I don't think. But look, Miami has a chance to prove it to him. Hopefully it's like a Washington type situation where Miami really takes it out on him or on that team. Eric Cooks, is there a relationship issue with Miami Northwestern with the upcoming talent there that would be concerning? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I don't think this has anything to do with that, with anything like that. I don't think Russell ever really wanted to go to Miami. He just never, there was never a connection there. And then it became pay this premium, and the premium got a little crazy. D-Dot, bringing us back. Focus here. All right, cool. The kid is gone. Let's talk Brody Jennings and what to expect moving forward. I'm with you. Let's talk Brody Jennings here. So Brody Jennings commits to the University of Miami. Let's pull up the tweet here. There's our guy right there. Locked in. I'm home. Brody Jennings. We did a whole reaction pod yesterday, but 6'1", 170 plus, Jacksonville Mandarin. Family is all Miami natives. His dad, who tragically passed earlier this year, played for Florida State, but is a Miami native. His mom's a Miami native. His sister runs track at the University of Miami. His brother, Bradley Jennings Jr., played at Miami at linebacker. But Brody is definitely more on the speed side of the equation as a corner. He's long. Miami loves his change of direction. They think he's one of the best man cover corners in America. Michigan had him committed. Michigan wanted him bad, able to flip from Michigan, which is a top-notch evaluator of defensive talent. Florida State made a strong run here, but of course, Miami is reigning champ of the state of Florida right now, and they're able to win that recruiting battle as well. Also sit on top of the recruiting rankings in the state of Florida over Florida State and Florida. This pushes us up to number 7 nationally, which I believe we still are at. I'll check it right now. But I mean, I'm a big Brody Jennings fan. We first posted about him way back in, it was an early post about him. I believe it was like in February or January that Miami really wanted to flip him. And that's the case. I mean, Miami's been off after him for a long, long time. All right, so Miami's 8th right now in the recruiting rankings, according to the 247 composite. So you're sitting there at 8, ahead of Clemson, ahead of LSU, ahead of Oregon, ahead of Texas. Florida State's there at 13. They got to scroll down a little bit to find Florida. They're at 16, right ahead of SMU and North Carolina. So, yeah, Miami's dominating the state and getting a good win in Brody Jennings. And I pulled this film up yesterday when we talked about him, but I can't pull this up enough. I love watching this guy's film. Just like how he plays, like his instincts for the ball here. But yeah, people are excited about Brody Jennings. In the chat, here's Judah saying, we don't need Russell. Brody will shut down Russell and Lopez if they don't flip. Yeah, you guys have both those guys going to the ACC, which is interesting. Galaxy King, we're still talking Calvin Russell, had the same party with Peter Warwick doing the chop and had 5 catches his entire career at Florida State. Relax. No, I'm relaxed, man. And look, you talk about Florida State. This is a Florida State legacy here that Florida State recruited extremely hard, and getting a guy like Brody Jennings is huge, who had every reason to go elsewhere. I mean, he's from Jacksonville. I know his family's from Miami, but he's from Jacksonville, which has not been a hotbed for us. Although Mandarin's quarterback, Carson Beck, now Miami Hurricane. But, he had Florida State legacy, just like Calvin Russell is a Miami legacy. He had Michigan, which is a top-notch selling job when it comes to defensive players. They can point to a ton of guys getting drafted, including Will Johnson in the second round this year. And he still chose Miami. So this is a big-time flip, a big-time recruiting job, a great way to really take back the momentum a little bit and get somebody that can play football, that instincts-wise is there. He's not a project at all. I mean, he's kind of plug and play, maybe gain a little bit of weight, but his dad and his brothers, they're all huge. So I think the weight will come on. He's tall. He's not skinny. I mean, the physicality part is there. He has that combination of the speed of his sister. His sister has it, right? She's a sprinter on Miami's track team. And then also the physicality. Here you see him against IMG. So he's battle tested, man. He's played some really good competition, just great instincts there in zone, getting his hands on the football. Oh, here we go. Postal Kane says, I work with Russell's mom. I talked to her for 5 minutes 2 months ago and immediately knew he wasn't coming to Miami. There you go. Inside scoop. But this one's a flip that we needed, man. I mean, corner, you talk about positions that you could find in the portal. I know Miami did great in the portal this year in corner, but typically that's harder to do and it costs a lot of money. Miami obviously was, because of how bad it was last year, a corner, and just the recruiting struggles that they had under Adai and Chevis Jackson. They went all in at corner and they invested heavily on it, but it's not something you want to rely on, I don't think, as far as just living in the portal for corner. I'd much rather get guys like this and develop them. Tony Cook's saying this kid's lived in the heart of Miami all his life. Ain't nothing like a Miami mom. Oh, you talking about Calvin Russell, I'm assuming. But yeah, let's talk about Brody here. Canes Jones saying his love and want to be a Cane was shown when his father passed away the day before his visit. His family and him still attended the visit. That's a player that wants to be a Cane. Couldn't have said it better, Canes Jones. Agree totally. This is the kind of guy you want. Not saying you don't want, you don't want a Calvin Russell, but you want guys that have football playing instincts, that you see him right here. You see how he sees the field, the physicality, who have the athletic traits you need, who play premium positions, and who really, really want to be Canes and are blue chip players. I mean, he's a 4-star player. And I think I like to look at the teams recruiting. When you see a kid getting recruited by, like, let's say Colorado, Nebraska, they tend to get guys that are highly rated that might be slipping because of some character stuff or whatever. You look at a Michigan or a Clemson, like those are the teams, obviously Georgia and teams like that, Ohio State. I want to see those teams recruiting the players that we're recruiting, because that means that these guys have passed various character checks, because those teams do not really take guys that have questionable character, questionable love for the game. I mean, they are really strict on those kind of traits. And then obviously they like the measurables. That's why they produce so many NFL players. So when you look at guys recruited by those type of schools, that jumps off to me. And I think with Brody Jennings, he certainly has those kind of measurables. He spoke after the flip. They got him listed at 6'1", 185 now. He said the environment won him over. He said the official visit on May 30th couldn't be matched. He said just being down here, the environment in Miami is different. Like I said, when I took my official visit to Miami, I don't know if any official visits are topping this, and they didn't. So that was definitely a big part of it, the official visit. I had an amazing time. I've been there multiple times throughout my high school years, going down there in spring and for a game. It's somewhere that I just want to be, and my family wants me to be. I want to be successful and play with my family and friends that are down there in Miami. That's really where home is. That's where my parents were from. That's where everybody's from. It would be great to see all of my family down there and have them watch me play. He's concerned about fitting in the environment in Michigan and family watching him play. He said the environment plays a big part in it. I fit in there best in that environment. And then football-wise, too, I fit overall. It's just a fit for me. It's just great. That's what it all came down to. What environment do I want to be in for the next 3 to 4 years? What environment? It's Miami. I just loved it there. Then they asked about other visits, and he said, those visits are going to be to Miami. That's where it is, Miami. You'll be hearing from me, probably seeing me at the games. You're going to see me at Miami. So if you're a Canes fan, that's exactly what you want to hear from this player, Brody Jennings. He sounds absolutely committed, and you watch the film. I mean, you see this is not. I made the call yesterday. We talk about sometimes you get these track stars, right? That they can't find the football in the air, they can't tackle, and they're just you're betting on the traits. Which looks a corner, that's a run and jump type position, length. I mean, you need the traits at corner more so than other positions. But a guy like this who has traits, has bloodlines, can run, can change directions, can do all that 6'1", but then also has the instincts to find the football, to find the ball carrier, to see what's going on, and just really look natural out there. That's what you want. I think that's a great pickup with Brody Jennings fired up. By the way, almost 1,300 here on a Sunday morning. Like and subscribe to this show, man. Appreciate everybody joining us. Really appreciate everybody that's finding the channel. It's growing huge. We're up to 10,000 subscribers and climbing, man. So really appreciate what everybody's been doing. Don't forget, if you're trying to get your summer gear ready, no better option than the Miami Hurricane team store. 20% off the hats, 20% off pretty much everything in the store. Your first item, 20% off, I should say, with promo code INSIGHT20. You can do that on MiamiHTS.com. You can also do it by visiting the store in person right there across the street from the University of Miami. You can get 20% off this first item. This is maybe the one you want to get. The Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, authentic 2001 jerseys. Not game worn, although there's a ton of game worn stuff at the Miami Hurricane team store, but right there, boom. That's pretty cool. Especially if you got younger kids that don't know what it is. Show them the real throwback show. I mean, imagine having these two guys at safety. We're talking about trying to find some safeties. Can you imagine having guys like this in this day and age? Ed Reed was like 23, 24 during that season. Can you imagine having a Hall of Fame player at 23 in a college defensive backfield? I mean, it was a different era. Nowadays, Sean Taylor would have been the best player on that defense. Like Stingley was the best player for LSU's defense because everybody leaves early. Amazing to have Sean Taylor as a backup to a 23-year-old Ed Reed, but that just shows you why this team will never be topped, and there could never, ever be another 2001 Canes. It's not even close. I mean, to compare LSU to Miami, it's almost laughable when you think about this picture that I'm looking at right here. I mean, anybody that even thinks about comparing those two teams, just show them this picture. It's not even in the same stratosphere. So that's why. But anyways, Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com, promo code INSIGHT20. Big news football-wise, too, when you talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who Miami's opponent for the first game, obviously. And interesting story just came out this morning I want to talk about. So studying Notre Dame, they love this guy, Charles Jagasaw. He had some injuries last year, and there was some shuffling. They had great depth, so their offensive line stayed dominant. But this was, according to many people there, their most talented, best offensive lineman. They didn't protect the starter right guard. Could have potentially played tackle. He played left tackle in the game against Ohio State. So this is somebody who, on talent, they'd say, like, this is the guy they talk about as their most talented guy, at least from what I've heard from Notre Dame. He's riding his ATV, or I guess a UTV, which, you know, man, those are scary. I mean, it's, I remember I was riding one and took a spill when I was little. That was my last ATV experience. But definitely, if you're trying to make millions of dollars playing football, probably not the best idea. He broke his leg. Broke his arm. I apologize. Broke his left arm in the accident, his humerus bone. And Notre Dame said the initial prognosis is favorable. He'll return to campus early this week for further evaluation. He had a torn pec last year, missed the season until the playoffs when he came back and started again. They think this is their best guy. But part of the issue, and you see it right here in this, like Notre Dame's offensive line last year had a lot of great depth. So they would have injuries, and then they'd move guys in, and the guys they moved in were just as good. Those guys that came in and started, that maybe were looking at a position battle to stay as starters, moved on. Sam Pendleton went to Tennessee. He's going to start. Rocco Spindler went to Nebraska. He's going to start. Pat Coogan, the center, who also plays guard, went to Indiana. He's going to start. These guys made big NIL money, even though they were basically like, you know, borderline starters for Notre Dame, because that's how much depth Notre Dame had. So Notre Dame still has a very good starting five, even losing those three, but their depth has moved on, which is part of what happens in the portal. If you're good enough to be a starter and get paid a lot of money at another school that's a Power 4 school, Tennessee, Indiana, those were playoff teams. And then Nebraska, another Power 4 team. So if you can go to those schools and be big money starters, like leaders of that offensive line, you're going to leave. So a team like Notre Dame that had extraordinary depth last year at offensive line now does not have depth. And now their best offensive lineman, at least their most talented offensive lineman in Jagasaw, is hurt. And they're not saying what's going to happen for the Miami game, but obviously it's the first game. He has a broken arm. It's July 6th. At a minimum, he's going to miss some time of camp. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But, I don't know. We'll see. That's a bad injury. Galaxy King saying we should have grabbed one or two of those guys to Notre Dame. We got a pretty good offensive line ourselves. We had to keep our own guys, really, because teams were trying to get all of our guys. And I think in terms of the depth this year, guys that are going to be like those three for us, that's going to be Samson Okunlola, Tommy Kinsler, and Ryan Rodriguez as sort of our utility offensive linemen. So we have 8 guys that can go. We did a really good job keeping those 3 I just mentioned who could have started elsewhere. And now they not only project to start next year and probably not going to leave because by the time the winter portal opens, they're already going to be sliding into that starting spot. But they have a chance to help us this year as well. So, we'll see, man. Rod Vick saying, however good this guy is, he's probably not better than McGlinchey or Quentin Nelson. We whipped their candy asses. I mean, that's true. Notre Dame had a great offensive line when we played him and smoked him. Adam Springman saying their best offensive lineman guy played like 2 games last year. They'll be fine without him. Again, this is according to the Notre Dame people. This is not my opinion. This is listening to Notre Dame podcasts. They were like, hey, they're talking about their offensive line next year. They're like, Jagasaw's the guy. This guy started at left tackle against Ohio State after missing the whole season. So they think this guy's the guy. That's what they've been telling people. And again, the depth that they had last year is out the door. They lost 3 guys that started in the playoff run to the portal. Forget graduation, to the portal. So they weren't going to feel it as much because they had 5 guys that are really good. But now when you start getting injuries, the depth feels a little more. So that is why they're having issues with an injury like this, because they lost all of their depth. And when I say depth, I mean guys that started for them during their run. So that's the issue with Notre Dame. And again, go to the Notre Dame message board and see what they're saying about Jagasaw. They're not happy about this injury. This is somebody they thought was going to be really, really, really good. Canes Jones with a great point. Made out of spring without any cleanup surgeries and made it through the June practices. Praying we make it out of summer and fall camp without injuries. I know, knock on wood, injuries unfortunately happen. So I don't cheer for them. I don't celebrate them. But, man, it's you hope we were pretty healthy last year. You hope you can keep that health. Certainly nothing catastrophic is going to hurt these kids' careers. And then, there's certain guys that probably have more depth behind them than others. Carson Beck, obviously don't want him to go down. There's a few guys. Oh, we got news here to report. So got good news to report for Canes Hoops. Got a new commitment. It's going to help us actually in the class of 2025. So Trayon Maddox, the 120th overall recruit in the 2025 class, is a 4-star player, has signed with the University of Miami. Let's pull up the story on him. This is for this year's class. He was from Orlando. He was going to Stephen F. Austin and then decommitted. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. But he said he chose Miami because the moment I stepped on campus, I felt at home. The energy and the culture from academics to athletics stood out to me. Felt like the coaching staff, they really believed in me and felt like I could be part of the team. I could see myself growing, not just as a player, but as a person in this program. Long and athletic wing that can make shots out to 3, defend multiple positions, and has a lot of potential to still tap into. Yeah, 3 and D. I mean, who doesn't need that? And every NBA team is trying to get that. Their vision was clear as they see me as a key piece. They emphasized player development on and off the court. We talked about building something special, not just for this season, but for the future. Look at this recruiting class here. Shelton Henderson, Dante Allen, and John LeBoy, among several transfers. I don't believe any of those guys. In fact, I know none of those guys were committed to the prior staff. So this is basically a brand new recruiting class. And let's see. I don't know if they've updated them, but I'm curious as to what we rank in the class of 25 when it's all said and done. Just go here. Check it out. Because obviously recruiting was struggling with Larinaga where he was at, just in a transition phase. So in 2025, we finished, 28th. 1 5-star, 1 4-star, 1 3-star. I don't know if they've updated it because this guy's a 4-star. So that would have been a second 4-star player along with Dante Allen. So maybe we jump up a little bit. But nice little transition class with a 5-star player included and a really talented guy, Dante Allen, and some guys that you could develop. So, I think that's an interesting one. Martin Dubé, man, encyclopedia. ATVs are very dangerous. In the 1990s, a baseball player named Ron Gant, remember him, lost a then record $26 million contract with the Atlanta Braves. Why are athletes still allowed on him? I mean, look, personal responsibility. These guys are making millions. They got to kind of be smart. You hope they get trained up. That's what these agents are supposed to be for. Kind of tell these guys, hey, man, you're a star player. You got money coming from NIL. You got money coming from NFL. Stay off the ATV. But luckily, it wasn't worse, man. Obviously, we've seen these go pretty south. So a broken arm, he'll recover. Nothing's going to be catastrophic and hurt his career. And then we'll see. It's got to impact him in some way for the game against Miami, even if he does play. Johnny Green says, with or without Russell, Miami's going to be all right, whether they either roll with us or get rolled over. Hope that's the attitude. PNOTY forever saying, flip Calvin Russell 2025. I think that's not outside the realm. Again, for the reasons I laid out, which is that Syracuse does good, Fran Brown might leave. Syracuse does bad, who wants to go there? And if he goes there and has success, maybe he goes in the portal. A-Rab asking, what's next at wide receiver? I think you're going to continue to try to work Tristan Keys. I heard less optimism there than I was hoping to hear last time I spoke to people, but you could flip Tristan Keys potentially. That's not outside the realm of possibility. And then we'll see, Cooper, Jason Lopez. I don't know if any of those guys are. Let's say Tristan Keys goes to Tennessee, just to pick a random school. Tennessee's got a bad quarterback, Joey Aguilar. I mean, again, that sounds like somebody that I went to high school with, not a starting quarterback in an SEC school. So, although there are a lot of Hispanic quarterbacks this year. We got Mendoza, Castellanos, Joey Aguilar, the Cuban missile at Kentucky. What's his name? Zach Calzada. So maybe the Hispanic quarterbacks are in vogue now. Diego Pavia. But, I'm not too optimistic on Joey Aguilar at Tennessee. Syracuse has got some serious issues with what they lost all across their team, including offensive line. So they lost a lot. And then FSU, we know they stink. So all of these teams, I'm just assuming he goes to, Tristan Keys goes to Tennessee just to pick a random team. That's not Miami. Because I don't think he stays at LSU. Those teams could all have a really bad season. When that happens, people go up for grabs. Heart of Sports saying Tennessee has Faison coming. He probably will start day one. That's true. I mean, that's going to help them, at least from a recruiting standpoint. Now, they spent $2 million on Nico and you gave him nothing. He was probably the worst part of their team this year. Probably cost them a chance to win a national championship because he was so bad that they were like 90 something in passing yards per game. So maybe it could help him with the Keys. My position is pretty clear. Unless you're getting an Arch or like a Trevor Lawrence, you can keep these expensive quarterbacks. I'd rather get a Carson Beck or a Cam Ward. But we'll see. He looks okay. Faison, number one quarterback in the country, although he's getting some competition. The kid going to Houston, Keshawn Henderson, is pretty talented. I could see him finishing as a number one quarterback overall. But Faison, you would think he'd have a chance to start given what's in front of him. Although they have a young guy named McIntyre, who I like, very talented player at Tennessee. Over 1,500 on. Like and subscribe to the show. And look, anything we talk about, whether it's basketball recruiting, baseball recruiting, which has been cooking, top 10 portal class in the country right now. Top 10 recruiting class, number 8 right now, number 3 portal class. We'll see where the team is ranked, but it's going to be pretty high. CanesConnection.com is the key to that. Make sure when you look up CanesConnection.com, put that /CIS. That's that /CIS. You get 20% off your first month with all the benefits, no matter what price point, including a private Zoom chat with myself where you can ask questions. I can give you answers that I cannot give on this public forum. And of course, that means you're part of the solution. You're contributing to the collective. You are making it happen. You are part of the reason why we're going to be holding that multiple trophies. ACC, NCAA, you name it. We'll be holding those because of Canes Connection. There you see the different price points. You get 20% off all price points and then all the benefits related to that price point, including Zoom calls with myself at any price point. So we'll see. Postal Cane. If Fran does good, where do you think he's going, D-Money? It depends what comes available, right? Who's kind of on the hot seat? Brian Kelly, if that goes south, maybe that could be one. Oklahoma's got a lot of pressure to win this year. If they don't show any progress, is Venables on the hot seat? I don't know. They just signed a new GM who's like an NFL type guy, and Jim Nagy. I don't know how much decision-making power he has and that kind of thing, but Venables has had a pretty bad start there. other high profile jobs. Lincoln Riley's, they spent so much on high school recruiting. I imagine they'll see that one through, even if they struggle this year. There's some good jobs that can come available. I mean, what if Kentucky comes available? Would that be something he'd want to do? Right? Just to pick an SEC school that could have an opening. So we'll see. Galaxy Kane saying, I'd rather play basketball at Syracuse than Miami right now. We'll see what Miami looks like this year. That's changed. ACC is very much in flux at the moment. Aspire saying, Calvin Russell needs work. He's not ready-made. I agree. And look, I think he's a 4-star, higher-end 4-star player. I think he's a guy Miami really wanted to get. I don't think Miami wanted to lose him one iota. But I do think he needs work. There's no question about it. He's not ready-made, and he's going to just need to get size, in my opinion, and just route running prowess. He played quarterback early in his career. He's played a lot of basketball. Watching at the OT7 last week, very talented, had a great Sunday, but was worse in the earlier days, just kind of hit and miss. You can see the talent. I heard he's a really hardworking kid, which to me is kind of the most important thing with these wide receivers, especially when they have ability. So you would think with his work ethic, if he locks in on football, gets his body right, works on his craft, he should be a really, really good receiver. It's just going to be about, I think, really the basketball part of it, quite frankly, and then the weight. Those are the two things I'm watching. JoJo Schrader, similar boat. He needs to get his weight right as well. And Lemon asks, do you think we get Blake Stewart and Cortez Redding? I think Tariq Green probably more likely than Cortez Redding at this stage. Miami needs to land one of those. Really, it's funny. There's a lot of Atlanta safeties because Redding's from Atlanta as well. But I think between Blake Stewart from Atlanta and Tariq Green from Buford, which is Atlanta area, you got to get one of those two. I saw Blake Stewart in person when he guested for Team Raw at OT7. Really, really talented. I'm a big Blake Stewart fan. He's visited so many times during the spring. I think he visited like twice. Then he visited officials, so 3 visits, I believe, for Blake Stewart. Could be more than that. We visited him in person in Atlanta. Then he came to the 7-on-7 in South Florida. So a lot of South Florida experience for Blake Stewart, and he's someone that Miami would love to get. Clemson's making a big run. I mean, Clemson does well in Atlanta. They got the Mullen brothers. Those guys are, or not the Mullen brothers, I'm sorry, the Terrell brothers, who are both probably first-round picks out of that area. So it's competitive. Again, kind of like I said with Brody Jennings, you look at the schools after Blake Stewart. Clemson, Michigan. What kind of players do they get? Talented guys, great character, great football instincts, NFL traits, kind of check, and especially check on that character box. I've heard Blake Stewart is cut from that same cloth. He's just you don't have to worry about him at all. Great family, great competitor. When I saw him at Raw, he had an edge to him. He was talking, he was playing hard. So he's not like just one of these kind of academic guys that maybe doesn't have the edge to him. He's got the edge and the academic stuff too, and everything else. So I'm a big Blake Stewart fan. I think probably the biggest, aside from Derek Cooper, who knows where that one goes, if that one stretches out, I would say the biggest target down the road here is Blake Stewart. Kaloje too. That's a big-time battle. Miami's been battling for him forever, it feels like. Like I said, very professional recruitment for Kaloje. But I think Blake Stewart's probably the one we need the most, given the position and given just how talented that player is and how much we just need somebody there. So we'll see, man. We'll see what goes on. Heart of Sports saying, if Northwestern kids don't want to come or Teddy doesn't want them to come to Miami, there's plenty of other schools. Go recruit where you're wanted. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Teddy's steering kids away from Miami or anything like that. That's not what I understand to be the case. We'll see. Right now you have a linebacker committed from Northwestern in Jordan Campbell, who's a 4-star player, borderline top 100 player. I've seen him multiple times this offseason. Big. He looks like he's ready to play right now. So you have a guy that is committed from the West. Spire Consulting saying the West sucked 2 years ago. One season after returning to winning doesn't make them the new hotbed for recruiting. They're pretty loaded right now, man. Got Johnson at defensive tackle. They got Campbell at linebacker. They got Naaman Lawrence, who's going to be your number 1 quarterback target in 2028, 27 if he reclassifies. He'll still be your top target. So they got some good guys, man. Obviously, Calvin Russell, Nick Lanier, who's going to be a star wide receiver next year. So they got some guys. He said, I'm not hearing that to be true. I'm just hearing that narrative a lot. Yeah, no, I don't think that's true. I think Bridgewater's a good coach, man, and what he did was crazy. Les Allison saying, tell the truth on the Miami flip. Talking about Brody Jennings. I mean, the truth is we've been trying to flip him for since January. They've loved him a lot. So big target, big commitment. Galaxy King saying that Jordan Campbell was committed when he went to Carroll City. That's true. That's true. He didn't commit at Northwestern, but he's still there. Lance Areste saying Nick is the best receiver on that team. I don't doubt it. That's a very talented dude. Reminds me kind of a Malachi Tony personality-wise, maybe a little twitchier, more explosive. Malachi's, I don't know Lanier's off the field. I don't know either way. Like, I just haven't heard anything about it. Tony, I know, is like elite in that category. So we'll see. KT Lloyd, Northwestern has 3 kids at Syracuse this fall. Now, yeah, look, it's a good plan to start a pipeline there. It's hard to keep them up there, though. The portal, when it gets cold, if they're not playing and balling, hard to keep them, man. Hard to keep them. Arab saying, Marty needs to visit Uncle Luke at Edison. He's got some talent over there. Yeah, well, he does have some talent, man. He's recruited. So his quarterback, Michael Clayton, is going to Illinois. Really big physical guy that I like. I mean, he's actually from Orlando originally, so him and Coleman are kind of they've known each other for a while. I saw him throw next to each other at a Miami camp, actually. Coleman, really talented passer. Size-wise, Clayton's much more a prototypical guy, just a big, strong guy. I like him, though. And then they also have Amari Stevens at Edison, who transferred in there from St. Thomas, who's a 4-star receiver next year. I saw him at OT7, very fast, very athletic, committed to Miami. So another guy to watch. So we'll Rob saying, I know it's early. Any Nick Lanier buzz from Miami? I'll find out. I'll ask. I think so, but I'll find out from Coach Duasso, who we had on the show not that long ago. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Sunday. We're going to like and subscribe to the show. Almost 1,700 on. Go Canes.